Welcome back to Your Real Estate Voice with Barb Schlinker, the weekly radio show that informs and educates you on how to buy or sell real estate with Barb Schlinker, host of the program and owner broker of Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty. Now, Barb, a lot of people go off those automated valuations like on Zillow to determine what their home value is, but many people don't trust those online valuations, and often the data like the home size and the bedrooms and bathroom count is inaccurate. So, how does a home seller know how to figure out their home's true value and sell it as is?
Well, Richard, when people invite me out to discuss the sale of their home, I'm going to show up with 3 or 4 different automated valuation opinions from different sources. One is from one of the biggest mortgage originators or mortgage lenders in the country. One is from Zillow. One is from other automated value sources. And one is from investors. And they're all a little bit different. Sometimes they're accurate, but I would say most of the time they're not. In fact, a lot of times the automated valuations tend to be higher in their opinion of value of what is going on right now. The only exception to that would be the tax opinion, because that's a different deal. That's not market value. When you get your notice in the mail of what value they're taxing your home on, by law, that number has to be 18 to 24 months behind the current market value. So it doesn't represent the current market value. Sometimes it's higher than the current market value. Many times it's lower. So that's also inaccurate. And so a lot of people also assume that when they put their home on the market, as is what they're expecting. They think that their house is perfect and there's no flaws, and they're selling it as is, where is, with all its faults. That is actually a phrase in the state approved contract to buy and sell real estate. But does it go that way? Almost never. Most of the time, the buyer does an inspection, they ask for stuff. Sometimes they're reasonable, most of the time they're not. And that's when you get Commander Barb in your face if you happen to use me to handle the sale. So in general, the process of selling, it starts with going on the market, getting the buyers in to take a look at the home. And that's actually a pretty large hump. Most of the buyers are going to eliminate a majority of the homes on their phones, on their iPads, whatever they're looking at. They're not even going to waste their time to go see it if all of the stars are not aligned online, meaning price, preparation, and presentation. When you do get an offer, everybody's pretty happy when they get an offer and get a contract. The next step is to do an inspection. Now, that is a point of negotiation. So the buyers will do their inspection. Unfortunately, in the state of Colorado, there's no qualification to be an inspector. There's no regulation. There's no oversight. Anybody could be an inspector. And I have just gobs of stories of craziness that happens on inspections. But that's part of what I do for my clients, is make sure their best interest is protected so they're not getting bogus requests for repairs. An example would be many times these unlicensed, unqualified inspectors will demand that the home be brought to today's building code, and yet it's an older home. Well, that's not required. It's a nice to have. Or another example is they'll say, oh, your carbon monoxide and your smoke detectors are more than 10 years old. They must be replaced. Nobody said that. Where did you come up with that? It's just something they deem as time to replace. Same thing with a water heater. If it's more than 10 years old, it's time to put it to death and get a new one. It's like, where did that come from? The water heater still works. Ours lasted 23 years. And I actually preemptively replaced those because I was afraid that eventually they might fail. So buyers ask for repairs and or improvements, and oftentimes it leans towards improvements. And then there's a point of negotiation. So the seller will confirm whether or not that's valid. And then they will negotiate. They'll either say, okay, we'll do this, but we won't do that, or maybe we won't do any of it, or whatever. But everything has to be done in writing. Then the next step is the appraisal. So if the buyer's getting a loan, they have to have an opinion of value done by a licensed third-party person that's looking to see that the home is worth the contract price and that the home meets the loan guidelines. And it's a little stricter for FHA and VA loans because they're looking for safety things like no broken windows, no peeling paint, no missing outlet covers, no missing stair rails, that kind of stuff. So most of the time in the case of appraisals, it just happens and there's really no objection. I would say almost every seller wants to see the appraisal, but the buyer doesn't have to provide it. So the buyer only has to provide it if they're objecting based on the appraisal. In other words, if the appraiser said the house is not worth the price of your contract, and then the buyer's going to have to try to renegotiate the price, or the home doesn't meet the loan guidelines, and then it doesn't really say in the contract who would fix it to meet the loan guidelines, but most of the time the seller gets tagged for that. And typically you're seeing things like, for a VA loan, regardless of age, you can't have any peeling paint on the outside. Same for FHA. And then the buyer does their final walkthrough. At the final walkthrough is when the buyer's agent and the buyer are confirming that the agreed upon inspection repairs are done and all the inclusions, everything, the house is still there, all of that. And then you close, and that's a happy time. So what does as is really mean? I don't know. you sometimes the agents will put in their contract, it'll say, well, the buyer's only going to ask for health and safety and plumbing and inspection and HVAC and radon electrical. And it's like, that's it, just health and safety. I'm like, okay, fine, whatever. To me, it's just talk to the hand kind of thing. But we have sold quite a few homes as is, meaning we put them on the market. We knew that they were priced very aggressively for a reason. I've had homes that needed lots of repairs. I've had homes that they were heavy smokers, so there was a heavy smoke smell in the house. And the seller knew that, and they priced it for that reason and still got full price because the buyer at that price, that was the best deal in that neighborhood. So pricing's quite an art in my view. And if you price it right, it can mean the difference between getting top dollar for the home or having it sit on the market month after month, showings, no showings, people criticizing the home, etc. And the thing that all of these tech companies have really injected into the real estate market is most of the buyers are looking at those tech company websites like Zillow, Homes.com, Realtor.com. And with those sites, they can see Zillow's, as an example, opinion of value of all the homes around it, whether they're on the market or not. So it really stands out if it's a good deal. It also stands out if it's not a good deal. So the buyers in just a few seconds are deciding whether or not to go see the home based on what they're seeing online with price and with pictures. So if you price it too high, they won't come see it. If you price it right, they may come see it. And you can tell by the showing activity. I think the statistics from Showing Time, which is owned by Zillow, and most of the agents use the showing service, the average up to 1 million, the average number of showings you should get per week is about 6. If you're getting less than that, something's wrong. It's either marketing or pricing. And in general, if you price a home too high and slowly walk the price down, according to the National Association of Realtors, you're actually going to net less money. And we've had all kinds of different properties on the market, and we use different pricing strategies with permission from the seller according to the condition of the home. One of the more common questions I get, in fact, I just got one just today, was, should I do this improvement? Will it make the buyer pay more money for the house? And it really depends on what it is. Certain things like this home that I'm showing right now, it was up in Monument, big house on acreage, but it had a whole bunch of homes similarly priced around it. that were also on acreage that were much newer, much fancier, had all the bells and whistles. So if you start raising the price to go up into those categories, and one of the questions they had was, should we remodel the kitchen that had like tile counters and white appliances? And I said, you're just not going to get the money, because you're going to go up in a price point where you're competing with these much fancier, much more highly upgraded homes. And so they priced it very realistically. They just took care of basics. The flooring needed work. It was pink, so they changed it to a neutral color. The sinks also, the bathroom sinks were seashell shaped, and they were pink. So we got in this company that does this polyurethane coating and painted it white. We had multiple offers on that house, and it sold for $75,000 over asking price. So it happens right now, even in this market that's been a little bit quieter with more inventory and prices under pressure at this time. And it only happens if you price the home, what I call very aggressively, realistically below similar sales. The buyers are going to catch on very quickly. So, when it comes to offers and how you know how much your home is worth, the market's going to speak back to you right away in terms of the number of showings, the activity, and whether or not you're getting offers. If you're not in that zone of getting offers, getting lots of showings, getting people calling, asking questions, you're probably priced a little bit too high. And it doesn't have to be a big change in price either. A lot of people think, they have to drop their home price like an elevator. It doesn't take much in this market to spark the buyers to want to play. And we know how to do that. So if you are thinking of making a move, give us a call at 719-301-3900. I'm Barb Schlinker. I'm the broker owner of Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty and the host of this show. And we're talking about what is a home worth as is and what does as is mean. And when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about how to get it priced right so you sell in a reasonable amount of time, less than 74 days. Richard?
You're listening to Your Real Estate Voice with host Barb Schlinker of Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty. You can always reach her at 719-301-3900. Now, Barb, I know that the home valuation, you're an expert at that, and you can help home sellers with establishing a fair price. But what are the things that make a home more valuable so that sellers can get more money when they do sell?
Well, every home is different. I don't even care if you're in a cookie cutter neighborhood. Every home has different improvements to it, different lots, all those things. At the end of the day, location is a big deal. So if you're buying, that's an important factor. But as a seller, you can't change the location of your home. It is what it is. In general, buyers definitely will pay a premium if the home has views or backs to open space. Pricing, again, is absolutely critical. You have to get that right. And the home being in good condition adds value as well. I just sold a home this week in which it was very nicely upgraded as compared to the homes around it, but the seller chose not to overprice the home. We had lots of showings. We got a full price offer within just 10 days. And it was a much better scenario for them rather than really pushing the envelope. And you don't want to over upgrade for the neighborhood. If everybody in the neighborhood doesn't have granite counters and all this fancy stuff, I wouldn't put it in there because it's really not going to make much of a difference. And pricing probably is the thing that gets you the most money. Pricing it right to begin with will get the buyers in. And if you can get buyers competing against each other, that's the best case scenario always. Also, condition is a big deal. So a lot of sellers will ask me, well, can I just give a credit to replace the carpet? The problem is the buyers can't see past it, right? They won't do it. So I was told by somebody that's basically a corporate home seller that you need to tell me if you think the carpet needs to go, because spending $2,000 or $3,000 on carpet is a huge difference versus if a buyer comes in and sees that, their offer will come in 3 to 5 times more. I'm sorry, 3 to 5 times less than the cost of replacing that carpet. So you're always better off taking care of flooring and just some basics. It doesn't mean you have to remodel the whole house. And as always, declutter, clean, get your paint neutralized, take care of kitchens and baths, fix any deferred maintenance, and that will add value for sure. If you are thinking of making a move, give us a call at 719-301-3900 or go to barbhasthebuyers.com. Richard?
You're listening to Your Real Estate Voice with Barb Schlinker of Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty. You can always reach Barb at 719-301-3900. We'll take a short break. When we come back, how long does it take to put a house on the market? Barb's got that answer.